All right, welcome in to a special edition of Big Hitters Only. We have Michael Hardison and Spenser Dalton. It is 8:31 p.m. on Monday, April 6th, the night of the national championship game and the last day of the 2025-26 season. And UNC has a head coach, Michael Malone, former Denver Nuggets coach, former Sacramento Kings head coach, longtime NBA assistant. It's been reported that he is the next UNC head coach, sending shockwaves through the college basketball and sports world today, this afternoon. Let's just dive right into it. Get some quick answers here. Get a 30-minute reaction pod. Just how we were feeling as fans when we heard the news and as our emotions developed. It was a roller coaster. I feel we're all in a group chat. Michael, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, no, I got a text at like noon from a friend that basically said, I think Michael Malone is actually the leader. And I basically was just like, no way. Like, that's just noise. We've been hearing names left and right. Like, Ben McCollum's name has popped up a lot in the last 24 hours. There were talks about, Byington's buyout. And so there's just you can't really distinguish the signal from the noise. And then I got another one like 15 minutes later saying like, yeah, actually hearing like Michael Malone. And I mean, I'll be honest, I think a lot of the Carolina fandom when they first heard the news, it was shock. And I was a little distraught, honestly. I was like, man, this is not the hire I want. And I think it's just we're like, I think as Carolina fans, we're so primed when we've heard we're hiring a former professional coach that's won at the highest level to come back to college, even though he's
Yeah.
never been a college coach before, got a little Belichick PTSD. And
Yep.
so I was really bummed out for a while today. I'm slowly coming around to it. I'm not all the way there yet, but I'm in a better headspace than I was at like 3 o'clock today.
Spencer, initial reactions. I mean, you told me you'd never heard of him. So that's got to be
I
shocking to kind of start researching him live.
I admittedly watch very little. It, I don't watch the NBA at all. I just don't watch it. I don't find the NBA brand of basketball to my liking. I much prefer college. And so Michael Malone's going to be the next coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels, and I was like, who? I that was my thought. I literally
Yeah.
barely I knew he existed, but I had no clue where he came from or what his deal was. But since then, I have been tapping away at my keyboard, doing some research, a lot of in-depth listening, and again, my initial reaction was who, and very shocked, thinking I don't know anything about this guy. Uh, why are we hiring someone that people who watch college basketball don't know who he is? But then I've listened to multiple interviews, I've done some reading, and what choice do I have other than to be all in? I'm all in. He does an interview with a Grateful Dead thing in the background. I'm doing that in honor of him. I love the Grateful Dead. Apparently he does too. So kindred souls, perhaps.
All right, we're going to dive into it more. Yeah, I mean, his name had been mentioned early on, Inside Carolina message boards, and there was a UNC connection. His daughter is a sophomore at UNC on the volleyball team. Yeah, and if you follow any NBA, you've heard of him. He coached the Joker at Denver, and it always seemed like to me. I mean, Michael, you can chime in here. I mean, it seemed like me he was a far backup. Like if they get down to their sixth, seventh option, they had Michael Malone in their back pocket as someone who could come. He was not coaching. It's the second time the UNC's hired someone who wasn't an active coach behind Belichick. So man, it was shocking because yeah, we had been talking like Ben McCollum, like, are we going to wait for Billy Donovan? Is Mark Byington kind of that last, this is a good coach we could get that is a very desirable coach, and then out of nowhere, Mike Malone on the day before the transfer portal opens, which will be tomorrow morning. So I think, and I saw Goodman tweet this, that it seemed like a little bit of a panic hire. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it was. You don't know if. I
I
love
don't
your opinion
buy
on
it.
as far as.
I don't buy it as a panic hire, right? I think rightfully so, we're all very much turned off of how this administration has led the previous big coaching search with Belichick, right? And I think we are taking a lot of that and kind of projecting it on this coaching search.
Yeah,
By all
I
accounts,
agree.
it does seem like this coaching search was done more methodically and more thoughtfully than the Belichick coaching search. It may not have had as positive as an outcome as we were hoping for, but I think we can just see through lack of board of trustees intervention, no John Pryor this go around telling us they hired Larry Brown or something like that, that it was done more professionally. I think that we probably got when Tommy Lloyd was turned down or turned us down, right? Which I feel like losing out on Tommy Lloyd is the equivalent. I think when everything's said and done, we'll look back and even the Arizona folks are saying this. That's basically like losing a hand of poker on the river, right? Like we were very close. I think if things had worked out a little bit differently, we would have gotten our number one guy. But I think when that happened, Carolina was left with three kind of options, right? They could try to wait on Billy Donovan to the 12th and see where that ended up, but they'd lose 5, 6 days in the portal,
Yeah,
arguably the most valuable days in the portal, in my opinion. And even then, he might still be using us for leverage, which had just happened with Tommy Lloyd. And we just saw today the GM of the Bulls got fired, so like there may have been something there where he was weighing us out. They could have gone the buyout route and really explored going after. I think they explored McCollum. The reporting says that he turned down an interview from Carolina. So maybe they go down the Byington route, maybe they go down the McCaslin route. But you're looking at $10 million buyouts. And this is a
yeah,
different conversation if it's 3 or 4. $10 million buyout is a very steep price to pay for someone that's not your number one guy. And that leaves us with a third option, which is if Michael Malone is interested and maybe he's higher on their list than previously suspected, here's a guy that doesn't have a buyout. He's won an NBA championship. He's available and excited about coaching at Carolina. And so maybe this is more of a we just didn't realize that this guy was as high on the list as he was. And I also think we need to rack and stack these folks, these candidates, based upon the financial considerations that are attached to them. Right. So Michael Malone becomes a lot more attractive of an option if it's Michael Malone plus an additional $10 million that would have gone to a buyout elsewhere to spend in the portal.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree with a lot of that. I think they weren't willing to wait for Donovan, and then even if they did get to April 12th and he was still on the fence, like still maybe 50-50, they couldn't risk that.
Yeah.
And so they didn't feel good enough about getting Donovan, so they had to make a move. And at that point, all right, no McCollum. Byington's buyout, $10 million, is a lot of money. They saving $10 million, like you said. That can now go to NIL. It can go to a very high end assistant. It can go to hiring a GM, building out your front office staff. So I think that's exactly what you said, Michael. It's where I think it got to, where they had to kind of burn the hand, two in the bush. You know, we're going to risk waiting for someone who might still turn us down, or go ahead and make a move on someone who, dude, all right, let's get to this point. I mean, this is a good coach. This is a good, if not great, to a high-level basketball coach. I know I went to 3 different levels there. I mean, he's won an NBA championship. He's coached the NBA for 20-plus years as an assistant and head coach. The guy is going to be able to coach in-game, prep, development, practice, and win games on the court. The questions that I think everyone has, and why I think a lot of people were upset, is that he's never coached in college as a head coach. He's been out of college since. It doesn't matter. He last coached in college as an assistant in Manhattan in 2001. Very low level. The game is completely different. He's never recruited in the last 20 years. Has no idea about NIL and transfer portal and the inner workings of fundraising. How to deal with donors, which is a whole different thing that NBA coaches never have to deal with. That is where the concerns come. I think we got a great basketball coach that's, I think automatically becomes a top 10, top 15 in-game coach. The questions now is how he's going to roster build, how he's going to recruit, and also, I just said, NIL, and then fundraising, getting the big donors behind him, which I think they'll come. I think all you need is you need the 5-10 richest guys at UNC to give you a couple million, and you're good for that first year. And then from there, it's I think the staff is critical. And Inside Carolina's reporting this. Greg Barnes, I mean, it's public, whatever. Subscribe to Inside Carolina. I support them. I support Tar Heel 247 as well. Sean May is reportedly being retained, and God, what's his freaking name? Pat Sullivan, and Eric Hoots. So 3 key members of staff are back. I don't love 2 assistants coming back, but whatever. Pat Sullivan's an NBA guy too, and a Carolina guy. You do want a little continuity. So I think hiring the next assistants is big. I want I want someone who's never sniffed Chapel Hill. I want someone who's bringing in completely new ideas, offense, defense, someone who can recruit, who has recruited for the last 10 years in college. Maybe a really young and hungry assistant who's an offense specialist, a defense specialist, recruiters, NIL, connections with agencies and grassroots basketball. And then the GM is obviously a huge hire now. 3 years ago, we didn't think about that. But now it's like, go get you an SEC or a Big Ten GM who's done it before, has been doing it for the last 2 or 3 years, who can bring 2 or 3 people with him. That's what I'm looking for next. A lot in there. Spenser, Michael, dude, I'm not used to calling you Mike. You told me you prefer Michael. Where else we go from here? I mean, dive in.
So I listened to the interview that Michael Malone did with Jones and Adam. Great interview. I would encourage everyone who's interested about our new basketball coach to go and listen. He said some things that really resonated with me, some things that I really, really like to hear. We all know the 3 tenets of Carolina basketball that Dean Smith set out. Those were continued by Roy Williams and Coach Davis. They were play hard, play smart, and play together. 3 very simple things. And Michael Malone expounded upon what the tenets of his culture were in Denver. They were work, selflessness, and trusting each other. I think they can go hand in hand with the Dean Smith tenets there. I think working hard and being selfless and being a trustworthy teammate is a great way to approach it. I mean, those are winning tenets, and he talked some about culture as well. And culture is not quotes on the wall. Culture is doing the things that you say that you're going to do. And I think that is the way that he's conducted himself, and that's the way that he led his teams to be. So I like what he has to say. I hear he's got a real maniacal, quote, work ethic. So, hearing that he is going to be willing to come in and do the work is really exciting. And so going back to this coaching search thing, I wanted to say something to this as well. We had a lot of guys who, for their own, I'm sure, very valid reasons, weren't all in on being the coach at North Carolina. They said, I got to wait till the season's over in Billy Donovan's case. They said, I don't even want an interview in Ben McCollum's case. They said, I'm going to maybe use this as leverage, or, we couldn't get them to say yes. And, maybe that's because they're still coaching their team. Maybe that's because they're in a situation that they're very comfortable in. I think this was maybe one of my biggest fears, was that we were just going to get turned down and turned down and turned down because people were not going to be willing to leave good situations where they're getting paid plenty of money and they've got a decent enough NIL budget and go to North Carolina where in Bubba Cunningham's words, the light is very bright on our basketball program. And so maybe they weren't going to be comfortable with those expectations, or maybe they just prefer the expectations, the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. They don't know what things are going to be like at North Carolina, so they choose to stay. And so it seems to me, by all reports, Michael Malone wants to be the coach of North Carolina. And I think there's something to be said for that. He has been around the program. He said himself he's been to 5 or 6 practices. He got to sit down on the floor. Very touching story about being invited to sit down on the floor as because those seats are reserved for family. His daughter's a volleyball player. So he knows what it's like to be in Chapel Hill, even if just physically. He knows what a game day looks like. He knows what the restaurants are. He knows just kind of the culture of the town. And, I think all of these things are important. We've got a guy who wants to be the coach at North Carolina. Yeah. Bunch of other guys didn't want to be, so it seemed.
I think it's a great point. I mean, he also was getting NBA interest. I think he was turned down an interview with the Pelicans, if not another team. So he chose UNC. I think it's a great point. I don't know about having other restaurants and stuff, Spenser, but he knows how to coach ball. I think he really appreciates the tradition of Carolina basketball.
That's what I'm getting.
Basketball
That's
guy.
what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I listened to. We had someone on CBS write up that article based on the podcast, so I got all those quotes as well. And he gets it, he appreciates. He's not flying in just for a check. I mean, I wonder when he's gonna get paid. Are we gonna get a deal out of this? Kind of like we were UNC was ready to spend top 5 salary, which we should be, but I wonder what the salary really be in the situation. He's been making NBA money too, so I think so. Mike, let me take it this way. I was getting tons of texts. Everybody's pissed. I think the people were pissed because, like Spenser, did not know who this guy was. So you're thinking you get this shit hire. But I think that was because of ignorance and the not knowing of who this guy was. And so you're like, we're UNC. We deserve the top coach in college basketball, Dusty May, Tommy Lloyd, Ben McCollum, or Billy names that people know. And so you get a no name, and people are furious that UNC is settled. What would you say to them, Michael, for people that are upset with this hire, that are still kind of upset with the athletic directors for the move they made here? Like, how are you convincing people about this hire?
And I think people have a right to be upset, right? Like, I'm getting there on the hire itself. But I think people have a right to be upset because Carolina's signal to everyone when they started this coaching search, what they're putting out there to the media, was that they're going after an established college basketball coach, right? Mm-hmm. And so Michael Malone may end up working out, right? We don't know. There's a lot of uncertainties. I'll get into the thoughts and concerns I've got. But like you've mentioned, great X's and O's coach, renowned for being a developer of talent, right? Jokic was a second-round pick. He invested in the guy and is now the best player in the NBA, right? There's a lot of positives here. But when you tell everyone that will listen that you're going to go after an established name in college basketball, someone that understands how the portal works, someone that understands how recruiting works, someone that's been there and won at this level, and then without seemingly much warning, you hire a guy that has 11 years head coach experience in the NBA, but hasn't coached in college basketball except as an assistant back in like 2001, right? Mm-hmm. People are rightfully upset. I think that is completely fair to be upset as a Carolina fan, not in terms of what the finished product is, but in terms of transparency throughout this process. And so for me, and I think we all rightfully are skeptical of the hire, at least certain parts of it and the process, I want to know who's going to be accountable if this doesn't work out, right? Because at this point, seriously, right? Like, I think as someone that's a member of the Rams Club for whatever the bottom line minimum donation per annual basis is, but as someone that buys in and invests in this, invests my time, my resources, my energy, I've seen the football program become a mockery on a national stage, and I've seen you run this process that seems from the outside looking in like it was handled at least more professionally, but we as fans, as donors to the university, were somewhat misled in terms of what ended up happening. I want to know if this doesn't work out, if Michael Malone does not end up the coach that you think it is, that he's going to be at Carolina, or if he bolts for the NBA in 2 years, if a better job opens up, because he was at the top of the Pelicans and I think the Magic as well, Ross.
Yeah.
Who's responsible? Because at this point, Bubba's got a foot out the door. Steve Newmark is a brand new guy. All I've seen is the chancellor of the university at this point has been in charge of the Bill Belichick fiasco. He has been in charge of the communications crisis regarding Carolina North and the new arena. And now he's been in charge of a basketball coaching search, which has most UNC fans scratching their heads at best. And so if this doesn't work out, who's going to own up to the mistake? That's what I want to know. And so that's what I'm feeling as a fan right now.
Clip that. That's a social spin out. We don't have a social spin out. No, I mean, it's a valid point. It's a valid point. It has to go right. And in order for that to happen, I mean, I think if you get him the resources he needs and he's able to get some people in there, I think he's able to coach them up. That's the core. And I think beyond that, I mean, establishing a culture where you get some player retention, you get some players drafted, and that all you need is you see 1 year of that, and then players will come. If they have that $12 million to $16 million NIL amount of money to spend, I think things will be okay because I think he'll be able to coach them up and develop them. And I think he brings the right things in terms of like work ethic, and everything you need to win a game on that day. Real quickly, Rhoback.com, promo code BIGHITTERS20. Mike's got, if you watch on YouTube, Mike's got a Rhoback. I am not wearing Rhoback, but I did go to the Rhoback website today. I'm looking for some groomsmen gifts, so I may get a Rhoback sweatshirt for a groomsman. Big Hitters 20. Check out their polos, man. It is golf season. I had Spenser up in the mountains last weekend, crushing drives down the fairway. Check out all the polos. Big Hitters 20 promo code on Rhoback.com. All right, let's reset here. Michael Malone, quickly. He started his coaching career at a Quaker high school, Friends School of Baltimore. That's pretty random. Then immediately an assistant at Oakland, assistant at Providence, Big East school for 3 years. Manhattan was his last time in college. Then it was an assistant at 4 different places in the NBA, the Knicks, the Cavaliers, Coach LeBron to the Cavaliers, 05 to 10. Coach Danny Green, I saw Danny Green tweet about that as well. The New Orleans Hornets, the Golden State Warriors, Coach Steph Curry for the Warriors, 2011, 2013. Head job for 1 year for the Kings, got fired. And then Denver Nuggets for, looks like, 10 seasons. He was fired from the Nuggets a couple years after they won the national championship, the World Championship in 2023. He seems intense. He seems fiery. He seems like your classic Northeastern gruff ball coach that kind of gets it. And sometimes, I mean, that people love playing for those type of people too. Like a guy that has your back. Spenser, it seems like you may have read more than any of us. Any other takeaways? Anything about his offense, defense? You got anything that you can tell us about what the ball may look like underneath with him? It's going to depend on players. And then let's get into some player retention, transfer portal, and we'll get out of here.
By all reports, they ran a unique and free-flowing offense in Denver under him. One that emphasized ball movement, so they were very high on the NBA assist rate. I love to hear that. After watching us run set after set after set after set over the last 5 years under Hubert Davis, I'm looking forward to less ball screens and more ball movement quite openly. And so I like the sound of that. He also emphasizes rebounding. We're not going to give up second chance points. Playing in transition is an interesting thing in the NBA because the shot clock is so short, and you get these weird kind of live ball turnovers and 1-on-0 dunks, like a lot more in the NBA game than you do in college. So I'm interested to see how he's going to incorporate the transition game at the college level, just because, that can really be like kind of the only thing you do in the college game. It's like we just get out and play in transition all game. It's like we might only run 5 or 6 sets for an entire game rather than, 50 or something like that. So I know some, but I don't know a ton. But he knows how to coach guys. We do know that. I'm interested in this whole Northeastern thing. I mean, it's the opposite of what we had. We've got Roy Williams, who's, a guy from my hometown, Asheville, North Carolina, man. He's a North Carolina guy. But it's not like there isn't precedent for grabbing somebody from who's a Yankee. We've got Frank McGuire, who started this whole thing back in the 1950s. So, I mean, guys, I like that he's like saying that he's going to coach guys hard. I'm all for that. I mean, if you're not doing something that's right, if you need to be corrected, correct a guy, yank him out of the game, yell at him. I mean, shoot, we talk all about how like guys can't be coached hard anymore, but Danny Hurley is basically the best coach in college basketball, and he's out there MFing his players like daily. It's I couldn't believe it. I saw a lip reading of him talking to his players, like expletive after expletive after expletive. So I'm like, hey, coach him up, coach. Let's see it.
I'm reading here. He coached for as an assistant for Oakland under Greg Campy, who's a well-known. He's still at Oakland. Then Malone started training for the Michigan State Police before getting a job with Providence College under Pete Gillen, the old UVA coach. So a guy that was trying to be a police officer and thought that was going to be his career before getting called back up into basketball. That's an interesting little note there.
I'm happy to have a coach that curses again. right? Like
Yeah.
I know that sound. I'm not trying to knock Hubert, right? But like, god damn, like, okay, I'm happy that like I'm gonna see some people get lit up on the sidelines, and like Hubert would
And
get
refs.
animated and refs. Like I
Yeah.
love passion, right? I was an instructor pilot in the Navy for about 10 years, right? And when you're teaching folks and getting them to learn to get to the standard they need to be, different people require different things, right? Different people require different teaching philosophies. Some people kind of need that buddy hand holding mentality, and some people need to be yelled at, right? And I always had an issue with the idea that we just had a guy that wouldn't curse, wouldn't let into his players, and I'm happy, I'm stoked that we see this guy screaming on the sidelines, right? I'm
And
happy that we've got a little bit of Dan Hurley in him.
I think he's going to be a good press conference, like from a media perspective. I'm ready for someone who's going to tell the truth. I don't know. I haven't watched too many press conferences. I'm sure this guy, being an NBA coach, like knows how to handle a press conference. He's going to just kind of tell it how it is. Maybe call it his players. Maybe call it his staff. Maybe call it the refs. And you ask him a question, he'll answer it. Because those NBA guys, they do a press conference before every game, I believe, in the NBA, and then after 82 games, playoff. I mean, his media is not going to be an issue. And
Nice
so
change
I'm
pace.
excited. I'm excited for not blowing smoke up our asses and treating the media and fans like idiots, which was like the thing that pissed me off most about Hubert Davis and how he went about that. Let's get quickly here, 4 or 5 minutes, we'll get out of here. A lot of news in the transfer portal with UNC because of this news and because the portal opens tomorrow, Tuesday, as you're listening to this. This will be out Tuesday morning. Derek Dixon entered the portal with the open, I think they all say this, but the opportunity to come back to UNC. I saw Jaden Young, too. It's being reported. I think he shared some
as well with the
Jonathan
last
Powell
one.
shortly after the announcement. Am I missing anyone?
Dennis. Isaiah
yeah,
Dennis as
Isaiah
well.
Dennis entered yesterday. I think the biggest one there is Derek Dixon. I think it's someone that fans would appreciate having back. I told someone this, like Derek Dixon, good point guard, average to above average point guard. I think we can get a better point guard in the transfer portal. No news now. No news yet on Mingo, the 5-star point guard, who I don't think is going to be that great next year, and Maximum Adams. I'm sure those are going to be some of the first calls, is trying to figure out the recruiting class, make sure they're set, and then you go out and get players. I think the key here is retaining Henry Vasar. Isaac Trotter wrote an article on CBSSports.com. You offer him kind of over asking. He wants 2.5 to stay. Hey, we'll give you 3 to stay. You are a building block for this team. It is hard to find 7-footers who can move like him, that can run the floor, can block, and can hit threes. Teach him how to box out. That's all I ask. You retain Vasar. That is a great piece. You surround him with some shooters. You get a good point guard. Maybe bring back Powell. Bring back whoever that to fill some spots, and then you hit the portal and you're off the races. Michael, anything on that? Transport wise, assistant coaching wise, anything?
Yeah, they got to hit the ground fast. He's got to fill his staff. We know that he's retained 2 assistant coaches. I would love for us to poach an SEC or a Big Ten guy, someone that has some recruiting ability, someone that's been at the college level. I'm 100% with you, Ross. I don't want some assistant coaches with any Carolina backing or background. Like, I want a brand new guy. When it comes to the portal, they're going to need to overspend because if you develop the relationship and you back channel throughout the season, you can probably get a guy at fair market value. When you're coming in hot like this, you're going to need to overspend to solidify and lock down some folks. So they're going to need to overspend for Vasar. He's first and foremost. And I think you can also sell him the fact that, hey, this is a guy that has experience developing centers, developing Europeans that are going to be at the primo top of the league. He's the guy, especially in a weaker draft class next year, that could boost his draft stock even further, right? So Vasar is the number one priority. Get him signed, spend what it takes. Use that money that you were going to use for Mark Byington's buyout to spend on Vasar. Go into the portal, get some dogs. I think you need physicality and you need size. So one guy that'd be near the top of my list would be Tiller from KU that's entered the portal. I know that there's probably a lot of back showing that's already been done with him, but I would make him an incredible offer because he had an excellent first year at Kansas. I think he'd be a rock star next to Vasar next year. And then I think guards are easier to come by than the 4-5. Spend where you need. get some dogs, get some people that are going to run that offense that are more pass first. I would love to bring back Dixon, I think, but I'd love to see him more as a shooting guard than a point guard. So I think they're going to need to drop some bags in the portal to be competitive, and I think they need to be willing to do that.
I think getting a point guard's key. I think that's where this team struggled last year with waiting and missing out on point guards. You have to overpay for point guard. I think shooting guards and wings can be a dime a dozen. And like, you don't have to, you can find diamonds in the rough that can fill a role that aren't superstars, that are more valuable than, you bring in all superstars, it's not going to work. So find pieces that work. I'm sure he's already on the phone with Vasar, and I'm sure they're already hitting the channels and watching tape right now to find some guys. You gotta get bodies in too. I mean, you have to, at some point, you have to kind of just get guys on the team as well. Spencer, anything else to close this out? And we'll watch this national championship game.
Yeah, we got to find guys who play their actual position. I want a guy who plays the one, playing the one. A guy who plays the two, playing the two, and so on down the line. I want 5 guys who play a real position. I want 3 guys that come off the bench who have their own skill sets, role players, and those are our guys. That's what I want to see. I have trust that Malone can evaluate talent. I think the staff, as you've pointed out, is critically important. A general management staff that is not just one guy doing, whether it's Jim Tanner or otherwise, that's not really what I'm saying. I'm saying an actual staff of player evaluators and people who do this stuff. We need an analytics group, even if it's one guy. We got to have analytics. We've got to have 3 badass assistant coaches who know the portal, who know NIL, who know how to evaluate talent and develop players. That's what we've got to have, and I think we can do it.
All right, good stuff, guys. Michael Malone, UNC's next head coach. We appreciate you listening to Big Hitters Only. Rate, review, subscribe, like, comment, review on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Big Hitters 20 on roadback.com. Appreciate your time, boys. We'll talk to you next time.